Hi there, my name is Andy Farquharson and I'm your host on Alternative Exit, the podcast dedicated to educating small business owners about the possibilities, benefits and challenges of transitioning to an employee ownership model. Did you know that there are over 200 million SMEs around the globe with an owner that will be retiring within the next 10 years? Many of these owners will never actually find a buyer for their business, forcing them to close their doors, wreaking havoc on their employees and the communities. There is an alternative. This show will explore different forms of employee ownership and the best practices for a successful transition. Each episode is going to feature interviews with experts on employee ownership, business owners who've successfully made the transition, and consultants who've helped facilitate these changes. Okay, now let's get on with the show. Hello and welcome to the Alternative Exit. Today we're taking a really different perspective. We're really coming at it from the point of an employee, right? And what role that they have sort of during the process. So super excited that we've got Sam Moles. He's a digital marketing manager and also the Trustee Representative at Stephens Scown, which is a law firm that's recognised for its commitment to employee ownership over the last 8 years. Now, in 2023, last year, Sam was honoured with the Employee Owner of the Year award at the UK Employee Ownership Awards. So this acknowledged both his contributions as a trustee and an advocate for both for employee ownership, both in the firm and also beyond with other sort of employee-owned businesses. So under his sort of leadership, in terms of sort of as a trustee, Stephens Scown has actively sort of promoted the benefits of employee ownership, emphasising its role in fostering and a thriving organisational culture that enhances business performance and also outcomes for employees. So, Sam, super excited about the conversation today, and thanks for joining us on the Alternative Exit.
I'm very excited to be here, Andy. As you know from our previous conversations, I'm very energetic and passionate, and so this is my jam. Yeah,
awesome, cool. Well, getting right into it, we've spoken a lot about different forms of employee ownership throughout the podcast. We've learned a lot about sort of what the differences between sort of an ESOP, an EOT, a co-op, etc. But what we haven't really heard is what's the role of a trustee representative?
That's an exciting question. Thank you for asking, Andy. So Stephens Scown, our employee trustees are elected. They self-nominate and we run through an election process to keep it nice and democratic. And I've finished my 3-year term as an employee trustee on our trust board now. But because of the energy, enthusiasm, passion and commerciality that I've sought to bring to the business from what being an employee-owned business is, myself and a colleague, Dave Robbins, actually produced a proposal for our leadership board alongside the same time that we were going through a governance review. And we're kind of looking at where are we going next? What is EO? All of those big questions. And one of the opportunities that came out actually was some employee ownership voice at the strategy board level. So these two roles of trustee representative have been created. Myself and my colleague Dave Robbins hold them at the moment, and those roles came in a couple of months ago. But the whole point really is to bring some experience and insight to the strategic level of our business from people who are boots on the ground in employee ownership, as we might say. But we also have a split function, which is to continue to support our trust board, work with them and continue to embed all of the benefits that employee ownership can bring. So it's a split role, but it's a really exciting opportunity for us both.
Yeah, super exciting. So look, a couple of things I'd like to sort of just pull the thread on a little bit there. You talked about sort of one of your passions being sort of the commerciality of how the commerciality that you bring to the role as a trustee. Can you just unpack that for me a little bit?
Sure, yeah. So my background is in marketing, and by background, marketers are creatives. And if you kind of put it on a sliding scale, creativity and commerciality might be on opposite ends. As a binary position, what becoming an employee trustee and getting really involved with employee ownership 3.5 years ago brought to my insight of business was getting to engage with senior leaders, but also starting to think about the business outside of my singular role, starting to understand financials, administration, governance, leadership, and all of that sort of stuff. And once you have that mindset change from an employee to an owner, an employee might not often get those sort of levels of information, whereas when you're an owner, they're more expected. And when you're an employee owner, that's part of the package. And one of the changes that I went through was in considering how my actions, my colleagues' actions and the work we do, we might not just fulfill a singular function within the business, they have an impact on the business as a whole. And the commerciality is a big piece of that. And so if we can understand that if person A is more motivated because we've engaged them in the strategy and we've heard their voice, actually they might be more motivated over time, and that delivers a better outcome for the business. So that kind of lever of not thinking about employee ownership in an evangelical way, but actually understanding that it has a benefit to the business as well as to the motivations for people, I think has been the mindset journey that I've been on, and is the journey that I'm trying to encourage all of our employee owners to go on, because I think it's really fulfilling actually to go into work and not just go, right, clock in at 9, okay, 5:15 I clock out, but to go, actually today I can make a difference to something that I personally am invested in. That's a crazy change that I've been on, my colleagues have been on. I think the more people we can get it on, the better it is for people, business and the economy, really.
Totally agree. So, but how do you take people on the journey? You said that you came in, you didn't have that. You didn't have that understanding of sort of how to drive the business forward. So how do you get someone who comes into from employee to owner?
Yeah, so it's a really good question. For me, it comes down to communication and access. So we form opinions almost instantly as human beings, probably because the way we've evolved to be oh, there's a bush rustling, danger, be scared. So we always form opinions on things. But if you can tell someone, or this is the narrative, or this is the reason, you allay all those fears and anxieties and you give them that shared narrative that we hopefully have at the business. We're all pointing in this direction. This is what this means. So if you can communicate that to someone, they can understand it and they can engage with it. And then the access piece is including them. It's giving them access to financial information, to other business essential information, so they can know the cause and effect of an action or a quarter or a month in terms of profitability and so on and so forth. But then also giving them access to their own voice to contribute to things. So we have a couple of different forums or mechanisms where we say, tell us what you think, or this is happening, what do you think, or this idea is going forward, do you democratically support it? So for me, those are two of the fundamental triggers. It's being open and transparent with the communication, and then it's providing access through those different mechanisms. And there's kind of an analogy that I use, which I often come up with analogies that are really terrible on this spur at the moment. But one of my quite good ones is around having a dog. When you become an owner of a dog, or most things that require responsibilities, you understand that you've got to pay something for it, got to take it for a walk, got to get it vaccinated, you've got to get it tracked, all these things, you know that you're going to have to wake up earlier to walk it out. And you know all the benefits you're going to have of a dog before you get it, but you also know what's required from you. Well, employee ownership is a form of ownership as well. But how good has your business been in communicating what your roles and responsibilities are in this place that you've transitioned from an employee to an owner? And again, if you've been told you're now an owner, but you've not been given the context of what it means from you, it can be quite daunting. And again, it's that, oh, the bush is shaking, this is bad, I'm scared. So yeah.
Okay. Nice. And you obviously you talked about the communication access, right, as the keys to be able to get people along to be that journey of owner. But then you've talked about your new role as well, where you sort of want to be the EO voice and also help unlock, I guess, sort of the innovation, right, and entrepreneurship, for entrepreneurial sort of nature of all the other employees that you've got within the business. What are some of the actions, what are some of the really tactical things that you're doing to bring that to life?
Absolutely, yeah. So the role's fairly new and kind of still being flushed out. But before, some of the forums that we created a system that we call... So the business name is Stephens Scown, and Scone is quite good for using in other names. So our form of employee ownership is called Sconership. We've got a choir that we call the Rolling Scones. We've got a five-a-side football team that called Barca Sconer. So our ideas system is called Ideas from Sconers, just to give you the context of what Sconers means. But effectively, that's a forum or a portal where people can submit an idea. But when they submit an idea, they have to go through
Just quickly, you said forum or portal. So
so it is a portal, yeah.
Okay, so portal, forum for me says a group of people coming together, and a portal is an online version to be able to, for people to go and put in ideas and sort of so is it one or is it a mix of both?
So the Ideas for Sconers system is a portal. The other thing I was going to relate to is our thing called our parishes, which is our forum. So I'll take you down the ideas for Sconers portal. So you want to submit an idea. You think that, for example, the 4-day working week or closing over a certain day or introducing a new initiative could be really good for the business. If you have that idea, you complete our pro forma, which says what are the benefits, what are the risks, what are the cost associations, and how else might this idea be implemented. Rather than coming at an approach of, I want something in my office, it's how can my idea benefit the business?
So present a business case.
Effectively, yeah, and it's an open access business case. The business case is then made live for a period of time so that our other colleagues, or Sconers as we call each other, can then upvote or downvote the idea, and they can add their individual comments. So very democratic, very much opening employee voice, but the big change is trying to change the mindset piece. So when we initially launched the system a couple of years ago, our trustee group probably didn't put in place the right structures to kind of say, and it needs to have the benefits and the risks and the cost sort of stuff. So we got a couple of ideas that were all, they're all good. We'd all like more money and more time and stuff like that, but they weren't business consider ideas. The journey we've gone on now is when an idea is submitted, those extra pieces people have to go through the process of, and in asking someone to say, how does this impact the business? What are the implications? You start to move that mindset change from I just work here to I own here, and these might come and bite me on the butt on the other side of it.
Totally. So I've got 2 questions off the back of that. The first one is with regards to how do you educate people on how to build those? It's a new skill set for a lot of people to understand sort of the cost, benefits and risks. And I think that, and the other one there is if you could sort of elaborate a little bit more on like what are some of those boundaries that you've put in, right? That hey, look, you've got to be achieving certain kinds of, I don't know, profit levels or reducing sort of risk to this level. Like how did you frame the boundaries for what good looks like?
That's a great question. So in terms of the communication piece, the other side of the system is our parishes forum. So that's where we have 10 employee trustees at Stephens Scown. Each trustee represents 1/10 of the business. So any employee owner has direct access to someone that is their representative, for example, but the whole group is open. But that's in the effort of building stronger relationships with one person rather than trying to spread out amongst 10. So that forum is the opportunity for us to have launched the system and then to communicate back what the processes are. And for those more, I might be afraid as one person in a 350 plus business to ask a group of 10 people on the trust board. I can go directly to you and go, how about this? How about that? So that's how we kind of launch the system. But we also have quarterly business updates where essential information is conveyed to the whole business, and the trust board gets a slot at that. So that was the forum, again, second forum, in which we're able to announce it and explain the intricacies of it. In terms of the balances and checks and what is right and what is wrong, the process goes submit idea, vote on idea. If a vote doesn't meet a threshold of users, it is then not progressed at that time. That doesn't mean it can't come up again, but what the suggestion is that as a democratic body, the idea has not got the support of enough people. Now, if an idea was one vote away from being progressed, but it was actually clearly enormously commercially or culturally significant, we would still move it on to the next step. That figure is an indication. But if you got an idea that had minus 50 votes, we'd clearly be going, the body of employees does not agree with this. Yeah.
Okay. What's required?
In terms of the voting threshold?
Yeah.
So we set it at quite a low number. We only set it at 50, just because that is a good indication really of a number of users. But that is a figure that's kind of reviewed over time. But we just set it at that figure as a good indication really of a number of support across the business. And then in that process, the trustees are available as guides for someone completing their pro forma. So if someone might be new to the business and having less exposure to the intricacies of a working business, they can go, I don't know what this means, or how might I complete this? So the trustees are on hand. And the way it also works is if someone from a parish submits an idea, the trustee of that parish is the one that supports them. So again, it's that reinforcing that singular connection.
No, I guess the question I've got on that, like as you sort of, because it sounds like it's people submit, everyone can vote, and then it goes to like the commercial cultural test. Seems like that there might be some elements that people are voting on that may never ever pass the cultural or commercial test, right? How does that come in? So like, and how do you provide feedback to people that, hey, look, this business case needs to be fine tuned a little bit?
Absolutely. So that is a journey that we've been on to change people from, if it's a 0% to 100% employee to owner mindset, we're always trying to get everyone up that journey. And so if something comes in that's, let's say a very binary 0%, we'd advise them on the implications would be significantly bad in all cases. I'd probably suggest we have no one at 0, or we have people on different varying scales. But the next stage, once it has been voted on, if it's then passed up, it goes up to our operational board for consideration. So at that stage, they'd look at it and they'd go, yes, brilliant idea. We can see the value. Not quite right. We'd suggest this might be another solution. Can the Sconer work around that parameter? Or no, because of these other implications. So we then have that complete feedback cycle where we can go back to the individual who raised it, everyone who voted yes or no on it, and the whole business to say yes because, maybe because, or no because. And again, whatever action it is reinforces the mindset change and the knowledge piece. But also, one of the things I find great with employee ownership is maybe a more traditional business model might be that senior leaders have access to everything and everyone else is down here. Whereas the idea of the system that I find really valuable is kind of bridging that gap, and it means that someone lower up can almost communicate at the level of a senior. So I found the system to be really interesting over time and just changing the needle on people's perspectives. But also in that more traditional model, what you don't necessarily have, which I like to think have with employee ownership, is a mutual respect. So the idea is that sometimes bad news is only ever going to be bad news, but you need to be transparent and honest about it. And if everyone is an adult on a business, just going, no, because I'm sorry, it's actually quite a good way to go, it's a no, but this is why. And you go, oh, thank you for speaking at the level. Obviously, I'm frustrated because I'd like that to be, but now I understand the reason why. And I find that to be quite reinforcing as well.
Yeah, fantastic. So I'd love to transition the conversation a little bit. I mean, you brought up there sort of the role of leadership in providing sort of a little bit more of that better coaching conversation, taking advantage of these coaching opportunities to help sort of bring people on that scale, right, from employee to owner. I love that. I mean, what are some of the things that you see as great business leaders, or what's required from a business leader to create a great employee-owned culture?
So I think one of the biggest benefits of employee ownership in increasing the ownership mindset is actually the entrepreneurial switch that it kind of turns on. Because when you own something, you feel you have more control and more energy. So for me, one of the transitions, the people who are further along maybe the spectrum of feeling like they own something, is they're more entrepreneurial. They are more in themselves leaders because they're driving us forward. And I think the more that our actual senior leadership team encourage those traits, the more we have pockets of people doing more, stretching more. And, it can be difficult to define what is an employee ownership thing in a business, right? Because when you become employee owned, some things change, but fundamentally the business is still exactly the same. And actually someone smashing their job, someone who's a really great business development for us, bringing in loads of clients, is actually really great for employee ownership, because if they are bringing in more clients, we're bringing in more money, which makes us more flexible, which means we all might have a better profitable year and get a better profit share. Now, them doing their job 10% better is great employee ownership. So I think sometimes it can be difficult to say, well, what is employee ownership and what is not employee ownership? But understanding that mindset of, I'm a part of this, I own it, the better I do, the better we all do. Actually, a lot of the stuff that just happens is great employee ownership, and it's referencing that back. But some of the great leaders for me, they do that, they unlock that. It's that encouragement to maybe go, well, your job description is this, and the thing you want to do is this, but clearly that's great. So go for it. I support you. I acknowledge what you want to do. What do you need from me? And I've certainly felt that in my journey from digital marketer to employee trustee to trustee representative and winning the award. It's that go for it mindset is really effective and unlocking for people and encouraging.
Yeah, I mean, that's when you talk about sort of that entrepreneurial switch, like that's what entrepreneurs do. They just go for it. They identify that problem or that opportunity, and then they just sort of go to sort of go and make it become reality, which is fantastic. So we've got that piece. What else does a leader need to do?
Yep. So from my direct experience of where I kind of think this comes from as well, it's the challenge. So obviously we can't all just be, that's great, go for it. Actually, it's about someone knowing what we don't know. And we had a people development director a couple of years, Mark Shepherd. He worked at John Lewis, and he brought such a great attitude to our business and such a great insight. And he frequently said, "You don't know what you don't know," and that's okay. And actually, we've all got more stretching to do. None of us are 100%. There's no one person that's the best at anything in the world, because someone is coming up behind them doing better. And the ability for a leader to say, "You don't know this," or "I think this is a blind spot," or "Have you thought of that?" The constructive challenge and the mindset that you have to acknowledge and accept constructive challenge is so powerful, because everyone has different experiences and different insights. Even if you work at the same business in the same professional position, you've each come up through with a different set of characteristics, and someone being able to nudge you in the right direction or identify blind spots, that's certainly really valuable for leaders to empower other leaders, I would suggest.
Yeah, it seems like, I think that last point you sort of talked about there, I think is important, because if you think about that from the employee lens, like the leaders challenging the employees, but it also needs to happen the other way around. Like, and leaders need to be sort of more inviting of that, right? You don't know what you don't know, but as a leader in an employee-owned business, I mean, you want to unlock all that capability and like that innovation and that drive from these people. So you've got to invite that in, like, which doesn't happen in the old command and control style cultures at a lot of organizations.
Yeah, that's a good reflection. Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. Okay, so entrepreneurial switch, really sort of driving that, creating an open environment to be able to make that happen. What role does a leader play in educating the employees? Yeah,
that's a really good question. And I think when I think of leader, I think of someone who's like really senior, but actually that isn't the necessarily correct assumption, right? In that old model, we think of the leader as the one or the three people at the top. But actually, leadership is made up of a number of characteristics. So for me, I think that someone who is a leader doesn't have to just be someone at the top. Actually, it can be someone who is driving the business forward at a more junior level. Now, I've reflected on the owner mindset when it comes to things like financials. One of the really great things that we've done at Stephens Scown, and I think we did it first by accident because our finance director was unavailable to do one of our business updates. My colleague Dave Robbins, who is a leader in this space at our business for employee ownership as our other trustee representative, he actually took the finance section of the business updates and he delivered it. Now, because he is not the most senior person in finance, he doesn't speak that language day to day. So what it meant was that he delivered it in a more accessible format potentially for everyone else, because he had to translate the language back to the language that he would know. And actually, in terms of, it doesn't always have to be leaders communicating downwards, because if we're thinking about owners being on a more horizontal rather than a vertical spectrum, actually having more peer-to-peer information delivered and knowledge upskilled and shared, that's been really effective at our organisation as well. But one of the other pieces of work we did was we recently went through an employee value proposition project. And that effectively came out with a series of behaviours that we identified. Oh, these are our updated behaviours, or this is how we've always been, but now framed in a way that is more accurate to us. And I think traditionally you probably have a management board delivering that exercise down, or a director of HR or comms like delivering that down to the business. The process was open to everyone. Anyone who wanted to take part in the workshops could. So we had behaviours decided upon by everyone in the business effectively. But the trustees, the trust board, were actually the group that launched that to the business at our away day. So rather than having the most senior leaders saying, we've decided this is how you behave, we had our representatives of all our employees saying, this is how you've told us you'd like to be treated and how you'd like to strive to be treated or to treat others. So again, kind of flipping that narrative of not everything cascading down, but things cascading across more of a horizontal line. We found that to be quite efficient too.
You talked that there about sort of being efficient, right? I think a lot of the times you sort of hear that pushback from leaders. They're saying, like cascading down's quick, right? It's easy. I make a decision, I cascade it, and we get across. Like, whereas going and getting this consensus and working with sort of other people to be able to drive that, that's time consuming. Like, how did you find that sort of that trade-off between potential time to create alignment versus sort of the top down? Like, and why do you call this, like the creating alignment, more effective?
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of following our governance review recently, and just thinking about what becoming employee actually does, there are some things that fundamentally don't change. Because we're employee owned, it doesn't mean that everything is by consensus now. We still have a leadership team who are appointed to those positions by virtue of their experience. So some decisions will always be one directional or omnidirectional. There will be some things that we can't put out to the mass because it just needs to be done like that. And some people don't need to have a part to play in some conversations, but it's identifying where you can include people more as part of the conversation chain and to what weighting. Do you seek one-to-one feedback? Do you hold a form? Do you hold a forum? Do you allow a Q&A? Finding what operationally works alongside what culturally works is a tough balance, and it probably is unique in almost every circumstance of what needs to happen, so that you can remain agile as a business and efficient. Because again, coming back, being efficient to a business means we might be more successful as a business. We can't make everything democratic, but then throw out our efficiency and our commerciality.
Okay, so it's like finding those high value opportunities where you really want to be able to get the employee's voice that are sort of going to drive more holistic. So it's like I think I go back to something you mentioned a little bit earlier when people are presenting their ideas, like they've got something that's either going to be that's going to pass a commerciality test or it's going to pass a cultural test. And so it sounds like you guys are probably making a decision, like in terms of how you're defining your governance. If something's going to have like it's going to pass the cultural test, like this is going to have a broader impact on all of our employee owners, that's something we're going to go get some consensus and get everyone involved in that type of conversation. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, absolutely. And then if you kind of think of like, say, the leadership team, trust board, and employee owners in that kind of 3-step process, sometimes conversations will just go on between the leadership team and the trust board, and the trust board, knowing the beneficiaries of a trust or the employee owners, they'll be able to decide, oh yes, we can answer this on behalf of the beneficiaries. We don't then need to turn this into a month-long piece. But actually there might be some piece where, and it tends to be, where if it's more binary, yes or no, it's easier to stop at the trust board. One of the great things about the forum and the portal system is that qualitative data. So when an idea comes out and you say, do you support this? Do you reject it? The richest data is in what's qualitative, because someone will say, I like this idea because A, and then if you get 50 votes, you get 50 different perspectives. And the qualitative data is what is really rich, because rather than having a scale of 0 to 1, you have a scale of 0 to 100 on implications or alternative ideas. So yeah, taking it back, some pieces just operational board might just have to decide entirely on that because it is operation. Some pieces might come to the first step for the trust board for consideration, and then some might go the whole way, where increasing employee voice is going to be good for our mindset change and for that rich qualitative data. Because our senior leadership team is made up of a certain demographic of people, more senior obviously because of the virtue of the responsibility they have. Our trust board is more reflective of everyone, but it isn't everyone. And sometimes you need to get that really rich qualitative data.
So, I mean, while we're talking about the trust board, so when you think about the trust board and other forms of employee ownership, I mean, this is just sort of really an employee voice. So great to sort of learn a little bit more around sort of how someone plays, like could you talk a little bit more about what that role is and how someone could be really great in that role?
Absolutely, yeah. So our trust board is I say it's a little bit different. Every business that is employee owned is different from the other one. But while being directors of our trust, we also have like sort of a staff counsel-y type role that we also play, which is really good for enhancing employee voice and having the responsibility to deliver some of the other triggers of employee ownership. But we're a trust board of 10 people, and that's 8 people who serve a 3-year term and 2 people who serve 1-year terms. They're made up of our trainee trustees. So we get different exposures in the group. A couple of years ago, we did an exercise and we completed a document to have our roles, rights and responsibilities. So we really identified as part of our governance what the focus was of the group. And that was really effective because before we potentially had people coming in without the shared narrative of the role that a trustee plays within the whole mix. So that was really, really helpful for us. But that's something we need to renew and review again as our governance has changed and as just the business and our people evolve. But effectively, it falls under those sort of 2 main pillars of being a director of the trust and then being staff counsel and all the representative and driving ideas that brings with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And how does the company think about, I mean, because that obviously takes time, right? These employee trustees also have a day job. And I know that when you, for example, you had your day job as a digital marketing manager, and there's a cost, right? For if people aren't spending their time. How do you guys at your company think about that potential lost productivity there? And how do you make up for that if someone's going to go take on that role?
Yeah, absolutely. So there might be team-to-team exemptions made, but broadly, the trust board positions are viewed as a over and above commitment. We've all got the day jobs that we have to do. So the people who step up to the trust board, while we don't vet them per se, you need to have the right characteristics. You need to come in with the right ingredients to face that role. If you're going to come in and not attend a meeting because you're not passionate or energetic or personally going to benefit from your characteristic changes, you're probably not the right person for it, because it is an over and above sort of commitment that we have, which is good because it makes sure that hopefully the right people are coming into those roles, because they're people that have that ownership mindset piece that goes, oh yeah, I can see where my extra time here is used. But the commitment isn't massive. We have a monthly trustee meeting and a quarterly meeting with our leadership team. And then any sort of outcomes or projects we want to push forward are divided up. So it's not the biggest commitment of time to ensure that people can deliver it, but it is very much kind of viewed as an extra commitment that people are willing to take on. And while becoming employee owned, we became 8 years ago, it's the kind of step on our cultural journey. We are different from other law firms. We have we're B Corp as well, so we've got a giving back committee, a charity committee. We have a number of initiatives across the business where people go, I want to do more. I want to give back to my community. I want to give back to the people who are our clients, or I want to give back to the planet that we happen to live on and benefit from. So we kind of have that mindset across Sconers of, I'd like to do more. This is my day job. This is what I'm really good at, but I think I can do more here.
Yeah. Look, I'm glad you sort of really sort of talked about the fact that this is not a massive time commitment, because it seems like I don't know, it does, like to your point, like self-select those people who really do want to give more. But if someone's already giving 100% in their job and they're sitting there, hey, look, but I still want to be able to provide a voice. It's well, now I've got to give 110%. It could be a little rough.
Yeah, so I think that we've kind of we've navigated that sphere in terms of what the time commitment is. But if we're being realistic, some people in their jobs do more than the 37.5 hours that their contract might designate, because they want to do more. They want to advance in their career. They want to personally develop, and I think it kind of fits into that sphere of, as you say, people self-select, or you've got the right attributes and you go, oh, actually I want to do a bit more. Might work through this lunch break today and deliver this piece of work, or I can get into work a little bit earlier today if I get that sort of train. So our people make it work, and as you say, kind of self-select to make sure that is going to happen.
Nice. Well, look, outside of the trustees, how do you think an employee can really make employee ownership work for them in the business? Yeah,
that's a great question. So obviously we've got these sort of forums where people can directly engage. But one of the things that I've encountered and shared with my colleagues is that we are potentially siloed in what we know about our employee ownership by virtue of being in our own business. And again, you don't know what you don't know. So one of the great things that we try and encourage people is to gain knowledge outside of the business. So the Employee Ownership Association run an enormous amount of initiatives, provide a wealth of information. But we have also started our own virtual knowledge share at Stephens Scown. So came away from the conference last year like mind blown, getting to be with other businesses who willingly shared all their information and experience. And we're like, we want more of this. So every month for the last year, we've got a group of people together from different businesses and gone, this is the topic, what's your experience? Just to have those little mini brain explosions where someone goes, oh, we did it this way, we work in manufacturing. We did it this way, we work in accounting. Again, just to kind of stretch our own thinking. So we encourage anyone in the business to attend them. We run them, so people are more than welcome to come to that. There's obviously a wealth of resource out there. But alongside having the forum of the parishes, the portal of the Sconer Ideas system. We also then have regular comms that go out on our intranet. We then have communications between trustees and employees, business updates, away days, all of these sort of pockets of information where we try and say, here's some information, come at us with what you'd like to know. So we're trying to pull as many levers without being too overwhelming, because everyone's got their day job to do at the same time.
Yep. Yeah, totally. Makes a lot of sense. So, mate, I would love to just finish off, because we've sort of come to the end of our time. I'd love to be able to finish off by asking you a fast round of questions. So I'm just going to hit you up with 3 questions and you offer a quick response. How does that sound?
So that sounds fun.
Let's see how we go. So the first one is, who is the leader you most admire in employee ownership?
There's a person I met at the conference last year, Arabella, and I think her surname is Lewis Smith. She was the founder and director of Salad Creative, based in Hampshire. I think I bumped into her. I joined a talk with her, and she was one of the people that I then met through this knowledge share afterwards. And she has an infectious energy and passion, and has taken her own business through employee ownership, and is now looking to support other businesses in the service they run to embed employee ownership. What's great about Bella is that passion, energy, but also she obviously has the commerciality in mind at the same time. It's not all evangelical, isn't this great? It's, this is all great. Let us practically help you unlock this for your business. They've started running their own in-person events, and I'm pretty sure they've got a stall at the next employee ownership conference. So I will very much look forward to seeing her again and finding out what they've been doing.
Okay, very, very cool. So mate, what was your favorite resource on employee ownership?
I might give you a bit of a wishy-washy answer, which is just like, it's almost anyone you come into contact with, right? Because there is no rule book per se of employee ownership, because it's different in every business, because people are different, the business is different. So for me, it's just anyone you engage with will probably willingly tell you their warts and all stories, because they'd like you to learn from their experience. And we're the same as well. The real blue sky thinking for employee ownership is, wouldn't it be better if your people were more motivated? Wouldn't it be better if your business was more successful? And it wouldn't be better if the economy was a little bit more balanced, with businesses that put people first and not just profits? So I think we might all have this really blue sky vision of actually how we could do something better. And the people I engage with seem to buy into that as well, and want to share their information willingly. So there's maybe a bit of a cop out, but it's also an encouragement for anyone just to, I saw your post on LinkedIn, sent you a message, and we got chatting. I think that's the attitude to have. It's, you know something, you probably do know something I don't know. I'd love to know it, and I'll share with you what I've got to know as well.
I love that that 3-part blue sky vision. That was very good. So, mate, the last question is, what would you say to a business owner who's sitting on the fence regarding a transition to employee ownership?
So I think we kind of mentioned before about different people in businesses. You've got like an employee owner. You might have someone on a trust board who might know more about employee ownership, and you've got a senior leader. I think for someone who is in the senior leadership position, they've got a very unique outset and perspective, especially if this business is their baby and they've brought it up, they've made it successful, and they're not sure what to do. I think they need to speak to other people who are in the same position as them. Both people who are evangelical about it now, but with the commerciality like Bella, but just other people in their perspectives, because they'll have a number of advisors saying you could do A, B, or C. But I think for an empathetic and truly emotional connection, they probably need to speak to someone who's been through the exact experience as them. So that would be what I suggest, is find out other people in the same position. What did they do? Because they're going to be the closest trusted advisors potentially. Yep. Makes sense. Sam, thank you so much for joining us, mate. Where can people go to follow your journey? Yes, so big plug for LinkedIn. They can find me on LinkedIn if they just search Sam Moles, but if they search Sam Moles, Stephens Scown, I should definitely come up, because there's only one Sam Moles at Stephens Scown, and Moles is a fairly unique surname as well. But they'll find me on LinkedIn, which is where I'm most active, and always keen to connect. If you connect, send me a message. Love to know your journey. Let's get a virtual coffee booked in and go from there.
Very cool. Well, we'll have a link to that in the show notes. And for those of you who've been wondering about the conference, Sam's talking about, it's like in the UK, there's the Employee Ownership Association runs an annual conference. The next one's going to be next week. It's probably going to be a little bit after we record this podcast, but I'm sure there's going to be a lot of content that's going to be available online coming out from that. And so I'll link to that in the show notes as well. Sam, thank you so much for your time. Thanks for your energy and enthusiasm, and really appreciate you joining us on Alternative Exit.
Thanks, Andy. It's been a pleasure.
Cheers. Bye. We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you want to continue learning about employee ownership as an alternative exit, head across to abettermonday.me for additional links and resources. You can also make sure to subscribe or follow along in your favorite podcast app, and be sure to leave us a 5-star review.